In Valorant, Breach has ended up being one of the least played initiators in Ranked, and in this video I'll go over some tips and tricks for all of Breach's abilities and show you exactly why he shouldn't be, and if you watch till the end you'll definitely be more equipped to take on your ranked games. With the stun, you want to try and focus on playing around areas where there is limited room to dodge the stun or no room at all, like for example here in B halls on Bind, A main on Haven, or C long on Haven. All three of those spots are narrow corridors where you're practically guaranteed to hit the stun, and this very often results in kills as well. And another good way to use the stun is to try and catch duelists like Raze and Jett, satcheling or dashing onto spots that are very common, like for example in this first clip the Raze satchels a ramp on Split, or in this clip where the Jett dashes screens on Pearl. And I often do this where I trick the enemy into committing, so when I stun they have no way out. And another example of this is this clip on Ascent where I purposely let the enemy commit into A main and then stun when they think they have control, resulting in a lot of easy kills. And one thing I've done way too much and that you definitely should not be doing is peeking before the stun lands. Here I stun and I immediately peek, but I don't even have my gun out yet, and the Reyna peeked and just killed me before the stun landed, so just work on your timing and don't make my mistake. The last tip for the stun is if you have a Clove in your team and the Clove uses ult, you can pretty much guarantee that the enemy will chase. So what you can do is stun either on top of the Clove for the first few seconds while the unkillable phase is still up. This is a bit more risky of course because he might stun your teammate, or try to angle it so you hit the enemy but not the Clove. I've done this quite a lot since Clove was first introduced, and it has worked really well in helping Clove get the required kill to stay alive. Flashing when your teammate is already fighting someone might seem like a bad idea at first, but because of the way the Breach flash works, where it has to go through an object, there are often spots you can flash where you flash the enemy but avoid flashing your teammates. Take this clip for example where the Cypher is already fighting the Sova, but I just flash through the box forcing the Sova to turn, but my teammate is left unaffected, giving him a really easy repeek. We also have the combo of using the flash in the same spot as the Aftershock, and what this does is essentially hide the flash inside the Aftershock, making it way less likely the enemy will turn the flash. And the higher rank you get, the more useful this combo will be, because people only get better and better at turning the Breach flash. If you want to flash and peek, you ideally want the flash to travel for a little bit so you have time to get your gun out, because since Breach isn't a duelist, he has a very long equip time after using abilities, so if you flash close to yourself like this and peek, the enemy might have time to turn the flash and then flick back to your location before you even have your gun out, but if you flash farther away they'll have to turn it as you're coming around the corner, and this time with your gun out. This isn't always possible though, but the general idea is you want to flash as far away from yourself as possible, but without making it too risky if the intent is to peek with the flash yourself. That definitely doesn't mean flashing close to yourself is bad by any means, because it does disrupt the enemy's crosshair, but if the option exists, I would definitely go for a flash farther away. The Aftershock is a super versatile ability that can be used in a lot of different ways, like clearing corners, pushing people off the plant or defuse, getting a kill on Sova, Skye or Gecko using their different drone abilities, but it can also be used as a sort of bait. I noticed people really like to push the Aftershock to try and catch me off guard because it has a bit of an activation time, so what I started doing is using it when I know they're close to bait them into pushing it, but then I just hold the angle, so instead of them catching me off guard, I catch them off guard instead. We also have the stun plus Aftershock combo. This is super strong if you can find an enemy stuck in a corner for example, and while this is pretty straightforward, one thing you do need to think about here is your crosshair placement. Don't have it too close to the wall so you miss when the enemy has to exit the corner. This is a mistake I made for quite a while after I started playing Breach, but instead have the crosshair a bit farther out. We can also use the Aftershock as a tool to prevent the enemy from playing in a certain spot for a few seconds as your team is pushing onto the bomb site, and this can be very valuable. It might give your team that space with just one ability, but it also makes it so you don't have to worry about that spot for a few seconds, allowing your team time to focus on other spots instead. You can also do that in reverse and instead use it to disrupt an enemy execute, and the placement of the Aftershock is surprisingly hard to see inside a smoke, so sometimes it even gets you a random kill. And as a last tip, I also want to mention that you can easily kill Gecko's wingman with an Aftershock. One of the core powers of Gecko is that he doesn't need to commit himself when planting and defusing, so using an Aftershock to kill the wingman will not only force the enemy to commit a player to the plant, but also force players to protect that planter instead of immediately spreading out into post-plant positions, and this can be super valuable. And as you can see in this clip, this ended up with the enemy chamber having to commit to the plant instead of being set up for the post-plant, which allowed me to ult the planter as well, making the entire retake happen before the spike was even down, because using the Aftershock on the wingman ended up creating so much pressure. And the ultimate can actually interrupt the wingman as well, and this is something I've done a lot because it cannot be overstated how much impact it can have to interrupt a plant or defuse and force the enemy to commit a player. And this is definitely not something you should do every time you're given the chance, but it definitely has its uses. A big mistake I made for a long time after I started playing Breach was expecting to walk into easy kills after using the ultimate, but I've lost count on how many times I've gotten bopped by someone crouching in a corner while ulted, so my tip is don't make my mistake and just start flashing that corner as well if you know someone is ulted, even if it might feel like it's a waste because you don't want this to happen.
Okay.
No fucking way.
I've died to fucking 2 people Breach ulted this half. It's fucking unreal.
Be careful when using the Breach ultimate because the ultimate has quite a long equip and use time, so you're vulnerable for quite a while when using it. This is more so for those moments where you find a good opportunity to use it but you're already on the bomb site or a bit exposed, and in those cases it might get you killed if you're not careful. When using the Breach ultimate, you can actually change direction of the ult mid-animation, and this has screwed me a few times. So if you press left mouse button and then mid-animation adjust your mouse, the ult can actually change direction left or right, and if you've lined it up to cover specific spots, this can definitely screw things up. So just be aware of your mouse movement when using the ultimate so you don't end up not hitting a spot you thought you hit. And my last tip is a bit of a clutch tip if you've got the spike down. If you're in a 1v1 for example and you ult, the correct move isn't always to run after the ulted opponent because they might be sitting with a shorty really close to the corner, or you might just get buffed because it's such a close distance. What you can do instead is reposition while the enemy is ulted, because by the time they're no longer stunned, you could be literally anywhere. And that's it for this one. If you found these tips helpful, let me know in the comments below and leave a like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you on the next one.